Is Jeff Lebby actually on the hot seat?
You are Locked On Mississippi State, your daily podcast on the Mississippi State Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Jaron. That's Landon. Follow us on social media right there, our ads. But Landon, we got to get into this. The Athletic released a ranking of the SEC coaches and their hot seat ranking, and this goes from the very top, Sam Pittman, number 1 for Arkansas, and it goes all the way down to the bottom, Kirby Smart, obviously not on the hot seat at all. But I just want to kind of go through the top 10 right off the bat. Sam Pittman, like I mentioned, Arkansas, 60 year for Arkansas. Seems
That's
like
wild.
He was on the hot seat last year, but had a kind of strong year or a better year and was able to keep his job.
He's been on the hot seat for 5 years, honestly.
Right. Billy Napier, number 2 for Florida. He's in his 4th year. He looked like he possibly was going to lose his job last year, but they go on the 4-game win streak to end the year. Brent Venables at Oklahoma. He's had 2 losing seasons out of 3. He's going into his 4th year. Mark Stoops is at Kentucky, 13th year for him. He's the winningest coach in Kentucky history, but things just don't seem to be going good for him lately. This one was kind of a surprise. I understand it a little bit, but number 5, Brian Kelly, LSU, in his 4th year, obviously hasn't made a college football playoff, so I understand it from that standpoint. But he did make the SEC championship, although they lost. They lost to Georgia, and they're like 9 wins, 10 wins every year, so they're right there. But ultimately, he's listed on the hot seat. Number 6, Hugh Freeze, 3rd year at Auburn. Again, he hasn't had many winning seasons. I don't know if he's had a winning season actually at Auburn so far. I think
maybe one, or he went like 7-6, but I don't think so.
And I can't remember if he went 7-6 or I don't remember. I just know he's not had any great years yet. But then number 7, Jeff Lebby, Mississippi State, 2nd year. What it said is Lebby came in last year with low expectations, yet still disappointed, taking a 5-7 team and going 2-10. Then his starting quarterback, the promising Michael Van Buren Jr., transferred to LSU to be a backup. Lebby, 41, was hired because the then new athletic director, Zach Selman, wanted his guy. That can work a couple ways. Selman either will stand by his coach for a while or ambition to get it right will take over. We'll get more into that in a second. But number 8, Kalen DeBoer, Alabama, 2nd year. And then number 9, Clark Lee, Vanderbilt, 5th year. A little surprised. That's not super high, but they just had a great year.
Yeah, you're not on the hot seat after.
He's not really on the hot seat. And Mike Elko, Texas A&M, 2nd year, number 10. Obviously, he doesn't have a lot of hot seat flair right now. But what do you think about what he said about Jeff Lebby?
I mean, it's pretty much what we've said. He's not really on the hot seat, but if things go terrible, then, that seat does start to heat up because – it is just his 2nd year. He did lose some people to the portal. All kinds of stuff happened. So, yeah, it's like he's not really on the hot seat, but you can see a path to where he becomes very much in the hot seat.
Right, and he brought up a great point at the end. Now, he brought up our point at the beginning of that where he said Selman will either stand by his coach for a while, which is kind of what we think will happen.
Yes.
We don't think the hot seat, like out of 10, I would give it maybe a 4 or 5. Now, if you go 2-10 again, maybe.
Because right.
Yeah, right. As long as you see some progress, I think he's probably good. The end part I didn't really think about. Ambition to get it right will take over. And that makes a lot of sense for a guy it's his first time being an athletic director. He's got to get it right or he's out the door. And so I could see that too. But I think he'll lean on the relationships. He comes from Oklahoma and Joe Castiglione, big on relationships. So I think he'll lean on that relationship side and stick with them. But yeah, I understand where he's going from instead of saying that the expectations were low, yet it was still disappointing because they went 5-7 to 2-10. But they lost so much from that year before when they went 5-7. Mainly, they had a star quarterback, and they didn't have that last year. They had Chapin, who got hurt early. Then Van Buren came on late, but was a true freshman.
Right.
Played well for a true freshman standard, but Will Rogers was a star. Like, I think he was all-time leader in SEC passing. So, like, he's very good, and you lost that.
Right. And that's a huge thing to take into account. But really, it's that, does Selman want to make his mark? Is he willing to cut bait this quickly if something does go wrong? Like, if they start 1-3 instead of the 2-2 or 3-1, like we've talked about.
Right.
And then you enter that gauntlet of SEC play where it's not getting any easier. Do you go ahead and be like, look, this isn't working, I'm starting the search now? Because that is one thing he could kind of do if you do fire him mid-season, is you can go ahead and kind of start putting out feelers for that next coach without it being weird on your end if you're doing that. I do think he makes it through the year unless it's absolutely disastrous. But like I said, there's a path to this getting hot. It's just kind of how quickly are they willing to pull the ripcord on this whole system.
Yeah, and the one thing I will say that Selman will have to kind of be mindful of is his first year as an athletic director, he fired his first-year head coach.
Yeah.
Who everyone else wanted. And granted, he was hired before Selman got there, so I get that. But he fired him after his first year, and he went 5-7 that first year.
Mhm.
Brought in his guy. If he then fires his guy after a year and a half, 2 years, that doesn't look good on you as an athletic director, because for one, it shows you probably don't have a great sense of picking your guy, but it also shows that you have a quick fuse and a quick leash to pull it on a coach.
Yeah.
And so not many coaches are going to want to come there knowing it's going to be a rebuild, but then also knowing you pulled one of your good friends and fired him after 2 years. What makes you think you're going to keep me around long?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Is you can't say that he can't do that, but
Right.
he almost can't do that, because exactly right. If you fire Lebby after 1.5 to 2 years, what coach is really going to come take this situation over? Because any progress made with all these transfers that we've talked about coming in here, how many of them hit the door when Lebby does? And then you're starting over even more with a whole new system, a whole new coaching staff. How many of these highly rated freshmen that are there this year that'll get spot playing time are going to walk out too? It's a very delicate tightrope he may have to walk if things get a little rough this season, which they could. You just have to hope that Lebby starts to show the progress, which is what we talked about. He has to progress in some way, even if it doesn't show up as a huge jump in the win total.
And you could lose your recruiting class. So, we talked about the players on campus, but your recruiting class could go out the door too if that happened. But we talked about how it's key. You have to at least go 3-1, I feel like, in non-conference. And then I think if you go 3-1, regardless of what happens in SEC play, he probably keeps his job. Now,
right.
I say that, but I also want to emphasize if he goes 0-8 with 8 20-plus losses, that's not great either.
Right. He has to be competitive.
Yeah, you got to be competitive, and you're going to get blown out in some of the games, most likely, because you got some. We went through the schedule, checked that out on an earlier podcast, but it's brutal. It is a brutal schedule, and so you're going to have some games you probably get blown out in. I mean, that you got Georgia, you got Texas, who was LSU. I mean, you got all these teams on there that, and we talked about, and it's early. A lot of them are early in the season, and so you're going to have some blowout losses, but you need to keep a lot of the games close. And like I said, I think it was a week or two ago, make it where at home you are very tough to beat.
Right.
Even if you lose, people know that it's a dogfight when we go there. No pun intended, but it's a dogfight and to go there. And we've seen that with some teams that aren't very good, but going to them, I think of like a Big 12, Iowa State for years before they kind of got decent. That was always tough to win there.
Especially at night.
Especially
at night.
Like we've seen that kind of stuff where just some teams, even if their record doesn't show it, they are tough to beat on the road. And that's what you need to be as a Mississippi State team.
Yeah, that's that. And then I would say show improvement on the offensive side of the ball, since that's his calling card. And I think that keeps his seat from getting too hot. Obviously, because that happens, he can always scapegoat a defensive coordinator and buy himself a year.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree for sure. All right, we'll come up next. SEC running back rankings have come out. This was actually done by LSU Wire. Where does Booth rank? We'll talk about that. That's coming up next. All right, well, ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch Money, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. I think we've all been there. We've all been there with the food delivery, especially. Also, instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Well, take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. All right, well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. We had some issues with the editing app for YouTube and TikTok yesterday. Hopefully that will get cleared up. That's why we didn't have a video up. But if we get that cleared up, which hopefully it is cleared up, we can get some videos out. So check it out there. But like, share, subscribe, tell your friends all about that.
Yes.
All right, Landon. So you were actually the one who brought this interesting deal to me. Is about Davon Booth, who, obviously the leading rusher for Mississippi State last year, but LSU Wire, they kind of ranked the returning rushers from the year before in the SEC. And it was the top 6, and they actually had Booth at number 3, which I was a little bit surprised, especially because they actually have him above an LSU Tiger.
Right.
So that's always good that the LSU site gave some love to the Bulldog over the Tiger. He's behind Le'Veon Moss from Texas A&M. Makes a lot of sense. He's a great running back. And Quintravian Wisner from Texas had a really strong year. I probably would have Moss ahead of him, but
I understand. Maybe they're projecting a little bit.
And they are. And I do want to preface, this isn't saying these are the best running backs. These are the best returning running backs. So you kind of take that into account. You might have some freshman or transfer or someone who didn't play as much last year, pop off and be the best running back. But what was your early thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that's about right for him, especially with all the things that we'll get into later about the offensive line and some of the changes that are going on there. But I mean, he was, I believe, 5th in total yardage from scrimmage last year in the SEC. So, I mean, 3rd in running back ranking seems about right. He's, had a great year. He's very explosive when he gets those open lanes. So, I mean, what did you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the biggest and the most interesting stat with that, first off, I think that was the right spot. You could argue Caden Durham from LSU, who they had number 4 a little higher just because he was a true freshman last year.
Yeah.
So he's younger. But, I mean, the numbers are hard to argue. I mean, 20 of Booth's 150 carries went for 10-plus yards. His breakaway rate of 53.2% led the SEC last year. Jeff Lebby, his offenses are known for the ground game. I mean, he was great at Oklahoma. He was great at Ole Miss before that. Even had some good teams with UCF. But the run game is really what gets the whole offense going, and they use it really well. And we saw as soon as he leaves, Oklahoma's offense can't run the ball at all. And so his schemes and how he does that and gives his offensive line advantages, he's a master at that. And so that's going to help Booth out, obviously. And as the number showed, it did help him out a lot. So I understand the number 3 ranking. That's probably about right. Like I said, you could argue Durham just because he's younger, so maybe you're projecting at that point. But no, I mean, Booth is definitely in that top 5.
Yeah, he is. And there was also Booth did a Q&A on Tuesday over at 24/7, and they asked him, your number spiked at the end of the year. Was that experienced and you were getting more comfortable? And he said, honestly, it was just sticking to the script. Just trust my guys up front to make the blocks, and the rest does it by itself.
Yep.
And I mean, that's a lot of being a running back, is seeing what's in front of you and being able to move. And I mean, if he's able to do that, that shows great vision. And he obviously has the breakaway speed from the stat you brought up. So, I mean, if he keeps this going another year in the system. That's something that's big, not just for quarterbacks, but running backs too. And if those receivers open up the middle of the field a little bit more with all that speed, I mean, he could be in line for an even bigger year. And that's saying a lot with the type of numbers he put up.
Right. And you mentioned it kind of in his quote. I think the biggest attribute for any running back is their ability to react. You have to be able to react and react quick to what you're seeing, especially in the SEC, because things happen so much faster. So you have to be able, you might have a hole and then it quickly kind of covers up and you have to react real quick and make another move. And so stuff like that is so key for a running back, and he's really good at it. And he talked about how important it is for him. And then as you get that relationship with your offensive line and you start gelling with the offensive line, some of that becomes second nature. And so that's why I think a second year in the system, he's probably going to have an even bigger year, because now they're gelling. Now we'll talk about the offensive line in a second. They're replacing a lot of starters, so he's going to have to kind of re-gel. But at least he's had he'll have the same scheme and the same offense as he did last year.
And, along with just giving him a breather too, the two running backs they have are both capable guys to where, running game isn't going to crater when he leaves the field. They all kind of bring something a little bit differently. And that's also can boost, when you don't have to carry it 30 times a game, you can have a little bit more explosiveness in your tank late in the game. And this is just something cool from that Q&A. He talked about changing his number to 6 this year. And he said, I've been 6 since high school. I found out I was having my son on December 6th. He was born on August 6th in room number 6. So I just needed to be number 6. So, maybe there's a little extra juice in that number too.
Yeah. Maybe that will give him some extra juice. And, the Diego Pavia news was huge for him and huge for Mississippi State, getting him to come back because of the JUCO years. But, they talked about it in that soundbite. I mean, you look at his season last year, he had 759 yards rushing, 5 yards a carry, 5 touchdowns. But look at the first half compared to the second half. I mean, the first half of the year, he had one game of over 60 yards, and it was a 75-yard game against Florida. Outside of that, he had none. The last 6 games, he had over 75 yards in every game but one. It was the Ole Miss game where he had 38 yards. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, he had 79 yards against A&M, 93 yards against Arkansas, 76 yards and a touchdown against UMass, 125 yards and a touchdown against a very good Tennessee team, and that was on the road, obviously made the playoff. 124 yards and a touchdown against Missouri, averaged 10.3 yards per carry. During that stretch, he had 535 yards, 6.1 yards per carry, and 3 touchdowns. Now, they went 1-5 during that stretch, so it's not like they, had this great season. But if you multiply that for a 12-game season, he's a 1,000-yard rusher. He has over 1,000 yards on the season.
Oh yeah, I mean, and he definitely has the talent to do it. At this point, with how this team is built, it's really going to come down: can the rebuilt offensive line give him the holes necessary to do that? Because he's shown he can make people miss. He can take it to the house or at least long distances when he's given the opportunity. So it's just going to be will this offense put him in a position to continue to put up those numbers?
Yeah. Also, if you hear the dog barking, that's Landon's puppy. It's a brand new puppy.
Yeah.
Not a bulldog though, but it is a little puppy. But so
she's got the attitude of one.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, coming up, we kind of teased it. We got to talk about the offensive line. Booth talked about the offensive line. We'll get into what he said. We'll also kind of get into what we kind of think about the unit coming forward. That's coming up next.
We're all about the stats because numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada PRO-4X, the numbers are on an MVP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team plus gear wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room up to 8 people, the Armada PRO-4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada PRO-4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada PRO-4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. We're posting daily videos there. Still haven't got a word on X or Facebook, but we'll let you know when that's
Still working on it.
correct. Still working on it. Hopefully we'll get it soon. But all right, Landon, real quick, you were just reading the Q&A with Booth. Kind of tell us a little bit about what he said about the offensive line.
Well, he said, he was asked about the offensive line with the newcomers and returning players. And he said, they're looking good. And I think we're getting more this summer. I'm excited for them, which we'd kind of heard that there are rumors that maybe another offensive lineman or two is coming in because Phil Oldholt was a more recent addition to the staff. So maybe he's finding a couple guys that he wanted in the building. Right. But they brought in 3 new transfers right now that supposed to be starters along with the backup as well. That was a transfer. And so, a lot of new faces, could be more in that room.
Well, and Lebby has hinted at it's nowhere where we want it to be. We need to, possibly look at avenues of adding more people. But you mentioned, obviously they returned the 2 stars in Jacoby Jackson and Albert Reese IV, both redshirt seniors with a lot of experience. But then they bring in a redshirt senior at left tackle, a grad transfer at center, a redshirt senior at right guard. And I think the big thing is, and yes, I understand that 2 of these guys played at a lower level, and I understand they didn't start all these games together. But like Jesse Ramil, who's projected in this projected depth chart at starting at left tackle, 25 starts in his career, 33 career games. Then you go look at Carson Lee, who's projected to start at center. Now, he played at Eastern Michigan, but 26 career games, 16 starts in his career. And then Trevor Mayberry, who played at Stanford, 26 starts out of 29 games in his career. So you got guys that started a lot of football games. And again, I understand that it wasn't together, and offensive line, it's all about playing together, the cohesiveness and gelling and all that. And so they haven't done that together. But you got 5 guys that are all redshirt seniors or in their last year as a grad transfer. Yeah. They've played a lot of football. You would hope that they could figure it out. Now, the depth behind them, not as great. That's why I think they've talked about adding offensive line and why we think they will add offensive line. But those 5, you hope that they can figure it out, and how good they'll be, we'll see.
Right. Yeah. With that amount of experience, you hope you're going to get at least average line play, if not better. And Jackson was talking about, we mentioned him, Coach Phil Oldholt, and, long time, he played for a long time in the NFL, I think 10-ish years around there, if not more. Yeah. Might be shortchanging him a little bit there. But he was asked about what he's like as a coach and how different his teaching is at the position. And Jackson said, oh, man, he's great. It's first time ever being coached by somebody that played at the highest level and for a long time at that. So the insights are different. The techniques he's teaching us, a lot of the stuff I've never heard of, but it's already translating and helping me out a lot. It's been great. I'm taking this opportunity very seriously to work for him. And if these techniques are already showing up on the practice field and in those reps, that's great news. Because that means he's able to relate it. They're picking it up quickly. And that just is one more step to this unit coming together.
Right, and I know people are going to look at him at Colorado last year, think the offensive line was terrible, but think about that Colorado line in 2023 and think of it in 2024. Yes, it wasn't good, but it was much better. Jordan Seaton, also obviously the number 1 tackle out of high school, or one of the top tackles out of high school, went there to play with him, and then he was able to get, and I forget the kid's name, but he was a true freshman walk-on.
Oh, yeah.
Who ended up starting at center for them and ended up being a really good player for them. And that was all about developing and finding that. And so he's got a decent track record. Now, that was his first year being the full-on offensive line coach, but he spent years with Bill Bedenbaugh at Oklahoma before that. And Bill is one of the best offensive line coaches in college football. NFL teams have even been trying to pull him, and they've talked about, always wanting to draft Oklahoma guys because of they know they'll be coached up. So he has a lot of experience in terms of working with a great offensive line coach, then had the 1 year of coaching. So he might be able to turn this offensive line around. And like you said, in the SEC, you need it just to be average to be able to do anything really offensively.
Yeah, and this is great. If he's picking up this quick, these guys that are behind this first wave of all these guys with experience, when they do get in games in a year, that's a year under him of all these techniques and of this experience that they're going to have. And if they're able to keep Lode Holt there, that could be a very good thing that just turns this offensive line into just a rotation of just above average players that are just running in. And, obviously you don't want injuries, but you have guys, someone goes down, they can step in, no problem. But it sounds like the first steps are being taken to making this, if not a strength of the offense, definitely not a weakness.
Right. And he wasn't, again, the offensive line coach at Oklahoma, but he was there when Lebby was there. So he knows exactly what Lebby wants, what Lebby's looking for. And then obviously having the NFL background, he knows what can play. And he knows what can play in the SEC and can play at that level. Even though he didn't play in the SEC, you play in the NFL, you know what a good player looks like. So I think all that's big. And obviously you need a big year from them in year 2 on the offensive line. Again, at least just get to that average. Keep shape and clean. You're going to have to stay healthy, and that's hard to do, but you don't have much depth outside of those guys.
No, you don't. And Jackson does touch on building chemistry with the whole new group. And he's like, it's a bit of a process. There's different rotations. We've only known each other a couple months, but getting to know each other outside the building translates on the field. So, I mean, he knows it. All those guys know it. They've all been around football a long time. So, I mean, they're all working together.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On College Basketball with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. March is here, so be the most informed college basketball fan throughout the madness. Find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Again, I'm Jaron. Check out my work over at Athlon Sports. Give me a follow on Twitter. That's Landon. That's his out. Give him a follow on Twitter. Follow Locked On Mississippi State on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Like, share, tell your friends about us. We're back. Yeah, we're back with the daily podcast. And so, football season, I know, is a little while away, but we're excited about it. It's going to be here before we know it, for sure.
Yeah, Will. I'm ready for it to get going, too. I'm glad spring practice is here, at least.
Yes, at least we got something to talk about with that. But until next time, Hail State.
Hail State.